Welcome to this lesson on using Google Earth to do some scouting and planning. What we're going to try today is to go through a scenario of an actual real life scenario of planning for a trip this time of year, which as I'm recording this right now, we're in about the third week of March, and we're going to look at how to set up a plan for a pre-spawn outing. This is going to build off some stuff we've talked about earlier, and going to kind of take some steps further into kind of how to organize some folders and create some waypoints and some tracks. And then later on, we'll talk about getting those things into your fish finding unit, your GPS unit on your boat. Then towards the end of this course, we're going to bring all those things together, take you out on the water with some of those things and kind of show you that plan in action. So let's get started. I've cleaned off my items here, my folders here. So I'm kind of starting from a clean slate, so to speak. And we're gonna kind of start as you might be starting. If you're not starting with a clean slate, I would recommend that you do that. And also, it might be helpful to have this going on a separate screen while you're in Google Earth, and you can kind of play this and stop it, pause it, and then kind of follow along or try to do your own thing, even on a different body of water. Once you kind of develop a system for yourself, it doesn't really matter too much where you try it. It should all kind of apply and work the same. So let's get started. All right. We've talked a lot about the treed flats area, and I'm gonna work my way in here to some treed flat sections. Okay, let's kind of start with an area you're a little bit familiar with now. We're going to start with our old rabbit hole area here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go on the premise that these flattest sections in here, and we're going to focus on a couple of things right in here. Now, this may not be apparent right away, right to the naked eye. Let's take as you're on the water, this might be more of what you're looking at here. Just kind of a bunch of water and some flooded sand dunes with a few willows and a few trees poked up here. But hopefully we're kind of getting beyond that now, where we have a little bit better idea of what we're looking at. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with some tracks here. And I'm going to add a path. I'm going to get this out of my way, move this over here. I'm going to pick a style and a color. I'm just going to pick an orange, and I'm going to pick a fairly wide orange there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and outline these drains in here. Now, how I'm identifying the drain is all of this green low line area. So if I just go and I'll just make a straight line here, outline that drain. And we're going to call this drain 1. Okay, so drain 1 is created there. Let's move this into my temporary folder right now so we can get all this other stuff off of here. Alright, so I've got drain 1 here. And of course, you have the total freedom to name these whatever you want to name them. And again, this is this low-lying ditch or drain that runs all the way out to this deeper water here. So this is our September image. You have standing water, a deep pool out here, and this water is going to drain, where everything that's green here, okay, kind of really serves as a ditch or a little drain. Okay, I'm going to add another one. We're going to call this drain 2. And I'm just going to mark this drain all the way, doing the same thing, following the green there. I'm going to hit OK. Add another one. Call this drain 3. And I'm going to work. I'm not worried about these things being super precise. I'm just going to go right down the heart of the drain. Hit OK. So now I've got these 3 drains, drain 1, drain 2, and drain 3. If I want to, I can go click on a drain and go back into the properties, and I can change anything about it. I can change the style, color. I can even click on a point and, adjust the size, adjust the route of the drain. Okay, so I've got 3 main drains here that come out of this treed flat area and have access to deep water here. So going back to my pre-spawn mentality, I'm going to try to locate something along these drains, believing that these are the transition travel routes, something along these drains. I'm going to focus on south facing for early season, but I'm going to consider all parts of it, especially as the spring progresses. So we're kind of reviewing those multiple elements we talked about earlier. Alright, so let's take it. We're going to zoom in here to drain 1, and let's take a look at what we've got here. We don't have any real dune tops showing. We're going to try and pick the closest areas in here where we have a break from a dune top to this channel. And again, if it helps you to, make that channel longer like that so it really sticks in your head. So I'm looking now off this channel, and I'm going to focus first on south facing stuff. Where's my closest transition between a dune top or that gray color and this channel? So I've got one of my best candidates. Okay, I'm gonna put a mark right here, and I'm gonna call this I'm gonna call it Prespawn 1. Okay, PS1, and I can change the style, color of these icons and labels, but for now I'm not worried about that. I'm good with just a simple thumbtack. I've got another hole right here, and I'm just going to put that in there for a reference. I'm not saying that hole necessarily is a good place to fish, but from experience and from our earlier conversations, we've talked about any deep water access that's right in and amongst the spawning flat or right next to the spawning flat. Lots of times that area around that depression or hole is a key area. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the hole here. This is a real small spot, and I'm going to fish the areas right immediately around this. If there's some visible trees, visible dune top, okay, I'm going to go ahead and target that. So I've got a couple targets here to fish. Okay, I'm focusing just on this channel. I'm not letting my eyes wander out anything outside of that really. Okay, probably my next closest point here is right about here. I'm going to call this, I'm going to go this PS2 for Prespawn 2. And then my ditch, my drain, you see is running all the way up in here. And it's going to come up on this whole beach here. So I don't necessarily see anything outstanding. Again, this standing water is going to be, this is quite a bit deeper here. So this break between this water and this shallow, it's south facing. I've got a hole here, and I've got, this is actually really pretty close. I've got a couple things. Now when I go in here and fish, I'm going to come in, I've got my main channel, I'm going to follow into this area. Then once I get back into here, I'm going to use these drains, which I'll have up on my front fish finding unit, my front GPS, so I can follow these and work these on my trolling motor. Because again, when this water's up, okay, that's going to be way less than obvious of where that ditch runs, where that little drain runs. It's just going to look like water everywhere, with occasional willow poking up and some trees over here. That's all you're going to really see. By doing it this way, you're going to have a pretty good image in your mind, especially if you kind of studied a little bit. And you go in here, you're going to, as you're fishing, kind of see it for what it is. At least I've found that to be the case. And that doesn't happen all the very first time I ever do it. It might take several times looking at this and a time or two going back in here and then coming back and looking at this. And what happens, even if you don't have any, let's just pretend that I don't have that waypoint in there. So I go in here and fish. All I have is a channel, and maybe I mark that hole, and that's it. So I come in here and fish, and let's say in the course of my day I catch a good fish. Let's say I catch a good fish right here. Okay, I'm just going to call this catch. Alright, so I label my catch, I mark my spot where I catch a nice fish here in my day, and I come back home, and I put that waypoint into Google Earth here, and I say, well, there's a catch there, and I kind of just analyze what happened there. And so I see that, oh, this is this edge of a dune top, it's kind of next to this hole, it's next to this channel. So I've got a hole, a dune top, and a channel all coming together in a fairly small area here. So that's something. I may not have solved the whole puzzle, but that's something. And it's south facing. It's on the south facing side of this dune. Okay, so that's one little example of how it doesn't all just come together when you sit down on your computer and mark this up. You just kind of start with theories and ideas. You go out and try them. Some work, some don't, and then you try to put together why the ones worked. And then you refine your map, so to speak, on Google Earth, and then you maybe get a little bit better theory for the next time out. Go out and kind of do the same thing. And over the course of several outings, and in my case, you know, it's taken several years, but hopefully your learning curve will be shortened somewhat, because hopefully that's the whole purpose of going through this with me is I'm helping you to kind of shorten that curve a little bit. All right, let's talk about this drain 2 here. This is drain 2. Now, sometimes it doesn't, the tracks aren't necessarily, they're not labeled on there like these waypoints have got a label next to them. So you'll watch here, this lights up. So if I don't know, I can just click on this and drain 1 lights up. And I click on this one and drain 2 lights up. So when we look at drain 2, I really don't see anything. That's the first thing to me that stands out, right? Where I'm bringing this deep water channel or drain, and where's the closest dune top, the steepest up and down between a dune top, the shallowest part of the dune, and the channel? Well, you'd have to say right about there. Okay, so I'm going to call that PS3. In PS3, I'm going to go in and check PS3, and I understand it's a south-facing part of this. I mean, that's all I've marked here. I will, I'm certainly going to make casts and fish to other things. You're not initially going to be so confident in doing this. Just from experience in doing this for the last few years, I'm pretty confident I'd just go in here and mark that, and I would just come directly down here and I'd fish this immediate area around that, and if I didn't get any feedback, I'd be onto my next area. This is one of those places that I had a friend catch a 7+ pound largemouth a year ago, and I asked him where he caught it, and he described it to me, and so going back in, this just kind of added to my puzzle here, and in fact this was the area he caught that fish in. Let's come out and look at drain 3. If I don't know, again, I can click on it, see drain 3 light up, and now I've got, wow, this really stands out. I mean, you look at what I've been searching for, I've got a prime candidate out here right next to this drain. I've got a textbook dune top really piece up in here. There's a few scattered willows, a few planter box style willows on it. It's very clean, but it's got good thick willows all around it. It's got some beaver hut activity right here. These carve outs are beaver hut activity. All of this, it might be, it looks like that could possibly be a hut in the middle of the dune up in here. Another possibility over here, but I can just see the carve out and the way this is chewed up. There's been some beaver activity working this. So now I've added another piece to this. I've got deep water, dune top, south facing, and I've got beaver activity. So early in the season, I'm gonna focus on, I'm gonna mark my first, best, most south facing, or I'm gonna pick the corner of this thicker willows and the corner of that dune top. Okay, so I believe I'm on PS4. This is my initial markings, and if I go out and catch something here and I want to rename this to something more meaningful, you know, by all means I'm going to do that. Now, this is such a pretty looking dune top, and this is, again, if I'm curious, well, what's this going to look like when I'm out there on the water? And if you remember some of those images we talked about where you almost had this willow ring around these cleaner looking dune tops, this is a prototypical, I mean, it just fits the bill. Has all the ingredients we've talked about earlier. Go back to my September image. And I'm going to go ahead and outline this dune top here. And this, when you're doing these, this doesn't have to be super exact, but basically what I'm doing, since my map that I have is probably not going to show this real well, I'm just creating an outline of an island. That's all the dune top is, and this island is going to be submerged early in the spring, and it's going to be hard to really know where that is. So by creating this outline, I don't have to stumble and run up on top of it. We talked a little bit about this in the last lesson. I create a waypoint that would be the logical entrance to this from the channel side. If you're just consistent with, you know, this mark is coming from the south facing side of the dune, you know, you have a kind of consistent place like that. And I've got a consistent way to approach this, because your approach and getting up here and not scaring everything off of this is really important. I'm going to call this DT1. It's my first dune top, let's say, I've got on here. So this track outlining this DT is, now if I want to, or maybe I want to, my DTs are going to be a different color than my little drains. So let's say I'm going to make that a green. So now that DT stands out pretty good. And I mean, I'm cheating in a way, because I'm just going to go ahead and tell you from experience that the corners of this dune top, or where anywhere this dune top butts up against the thickest willows and also has deep water nearby, so this corner, a little bit on this corner, this backside here where it's closest to this water, the closest to the sharpest break, those are all real key parts of that dune top. So again, as the spring rolls along and things warm up, I'm going to fish this whole thing, and I might even do that early in the season. But early in the season, I'm going to focus on this south facing side, If I get no feedback and it's in March, or it's late March, early April, I probably will move on to some other south facing stuff. But if it's mid-April to later April, I'm going to go ahead and work this whole area here.